What's up, everybody? Hope you're doing absolutely awesome out there. Long time no see. I'm super excited to be back making another video. We got the new space going here. Haven't finalized everything yet, but I'm super happy with what I've come up with so far. We're getting settled into the new house and things are going good, so I should be able to get back on track with making more consistent content. As you saw by the title of this video, we are talking about the Fellow Opus, which is their brand new conical burr grinder. But before we dive into that, I just want to extend a thank you to Fellow Products for shipping me an Opus. As usual, they're not paying me for any content, and all the thoughts in this video are my own. I also want to say a huge thank you to my buddies over at Pear Cup Works here in Mesa, Arizona. They are an awesome coffee shop and roaster. They source and roast some really unique and really interesting coffees, some of the best coffees I've ever had. They also specialize in unique and interesting teas as well. So if you're into good coffee, which you probably are since you're here watching my videos, check out Pear Cup Works. There's going to be a link in the description, and let's get on with the Opus. In typical Fellow Products fashion, the new Opus grinder is modern in style and packs a lot of great features at an affordable price. Wanting to create something better than what's ever been available in the sub $200 price point was the goal of Fellow here with the Opus. The Opus was intended to be an all-around grinder that can grind for, yes, espresso, all the way to cold brew. Easy enough to use for beginners, but also creating satisfying results and the ability to make precision burr adjustments that coffee enthusiasts alike will enjoy. Right out of the gate, I will say I was a little underwhelmed with the Opus. I was disappointed to see a plastic catch cup and lid. I noticed right away that the catch cup magnet rattled, and that the espresso dosing attachment, which is a really innovative and cool feature that we'll come back to, didn't fit tightly inside the dosing cup like it's supposed to. Luckily though, Fellow was already aware of the issue with the dosing cup and portafilter attachment. They sent me new versions of both of those and they fit together much better, much tighter, and no more magnet rattle. So I don't think anyone who buys a production version of the Opus will have an issue, like I did with that. I was super excited and grateful to receive a pre-production Opus to get to play with. So those few things kind of right out of the box took the wind out of my sails a little bit. But then I had to remember, this is a sub $200 entry-level conical burr grinder with a great motor and great custom designed burrs. And just like any product, sometimes in order to offer better, higher quality features in certain areas, you have to cut back on the quality of the features in other areas. And that's kind of normal in the production and, marketing and product retail world, right? I realized that I was probably being a little too hard on the Opus, and now that I've had a chance to play with it for a few weeks, get it dialed in, been making some great cups of coffee and pulling some great shots of espresso with it, and I do really like this grinder. So I don't want to start this video off on a negative vibe, and I don't want to discourage anybody from, looking into the Opus or buying one if you were interested in one, because I do think it's a great grinder. So let's dive into what is great. So like I said in the beginning, the Opus is intended to be an entry-level grinder coming in at $195 US, but it packs a punch in a few areas. It houses a proprietary custom-designed 40mm conical burr set, aptly named Burly Burrs, and it also has a very strong motor with 6 Newton-meters of torque. These burrs are fantastic. I've been getting great results that I've been happy with, been getting great extractions, which we'll talk a little bit more about here in a minute. But it produces just really great, sort of traditional style, creamy, big body espresso shots. And it creates very well balanced, low acidity pour overs that have good enough clarity to be tasty and satisfying. So I think at this price point, a lot of people are going to be really happy with this grinder's capabilities. I already touched on the Opus's motor. Opusy? Well, I only have one, so I guess it's not plural. It's a very, very powerful motor. In talking to Nick Terzulli, who is the lead designer of both the O Gen 2 and the Opus, he was telling me that this thing can grind green coffee. That's how strong it is. Don't recommend you do that. He was just sort of telling me that to convey how powerful and strong this motor is and how good these burrs are. Also, like I already mentioned, the Opus can grind for and is intended to grind for espresso, which is something that a lot of us coffee nerds have been wanting from Fellow for a while. While the Gen 2 Ode and the original Ode are great grinders grinders, the lack of ability of being able to grind for espresso was a bummer for a lot of people. So the Opus has really filled that gap to have a grinder like this and have one grinder, especially at this price point, that does espresso and filter brewing very well. Like I just said, while the espresso grinding capabilities are probably the Opus's #1 ability on a lot of people's radar, I've been getting great cups of pour over with this guy. I typically dose 15 to 18 grams for a pour over. I'm usually brewing in the Oria V3, maybe the Stag X on occasion. I like the plastic Cafic flour dripper as well. And occasionally I brew in the ceramic origami, and I've been getting great extractions sort of in the typical 18 to 22% kind of specialty coffee range, for extraction percentage. And they are absolutely tasting fantastic. In my testing, I have also pushed these burrs a little bit, and I've gotten upwards of 24 to 25% extractions, which on a lot of grinders, you would start to get some bitterness, some astringency, some really not so great tasting flavors. And I'm happy to report that you can push Ode upwards again, 23, 24, 25% extraction, depending on the coffee, and get really good results. That's just a testament to, the design of the burrs, the strength of the motor, and just the overall, design and time that Fellows put into the Opus to be able to, get high level extractions like that are still drinkable and tasty cups. For espresso, I've been experiencing the same great results that I was experiencing with filter. I've done multiple shot styles, whether that was modern, traditional, or turbo style shots with multiple coffees, and I'm happy to report that I've been getting great results with kind of all of that. So if you like creamier, bigger body, good crema style syrupy shots, and you're using like maybe more of a medium roast coffee for your espresso, then the Opus is going to do absolutely fantastic. It will do well with lighter roasted coffees, single origins, things like that for espresso. I don't like it as much as I like a flat burr grinder for those style of shots where you're doing the little bit more modern, longer shots, or like turbo style shots. You're going to get better results with that, in my opinion, for lighter roasted coffees on a flat burr grinder. But I did still get very tasty, very drinkable, enjoyable shots that way. When it comes to dialing in the Opus, Fellow came up with a really cool toolless inner burr adjustment, which is where you can basically adjust positive or negative up to, I think, 6 clicks over what the external adjustment dial gives you. So each one of these clicks on the external adjustment, main adjustment dial for the Opus is 50 micron. You can get an additional 16.7 micron of adjustment at each click of the inner burr adjustment, plus or minus, over what it's reading out here, effectively cutting each one of these segments into thirds. As an example, like I said, the first few shots that I did with the Opus were stalling the machine or running very slow. And I noticed with the coffee I was using at the time, setting 2 was running a bit slow, but 1 click up to setting, let's call it 2.1, was running a little faster than I wanted. So making adjustments to that toolless inner burr adjustment enabled me to tighten up the grind in that same main, sort of adjustment range of 2.1 or 2, and slow that shot down and get a much better extraction. The really nice thing about this toolless inner burr adjustment design is that you can really change it quickly and sort of on the fly for different coffee and different brewing methods. Keep notes, of specific coffees and where you have those specific adjustments. That way, when you come back to using that coffee maybe later in the future, you can go right back to where you had it set originally for that coffee and get those same great results with that coffee again, just like you experienced after getting it dialed in the first time. Particle distribution, or the size difference between the smallest particles and the largest particles in your ground coffee, usually have a wider range on conical burr grinders. So don't expect to see the same unimodal characteristics if you're used to a really well calibrated and aligned flat burr grinder. Just because it's not as unimodal of a grind doesn't mean that you can't get great tasting cups of coffee. Like I said, I've been getting fantastic cups of coffee with this. And once you get it dialed in and adjusted for the brewing methods you like and the coffees you're using, I think you're going to find that the Opus does very well. It has a straight line, hopper to burr chamber to dosing cup design, which means the beans go straight in, obviously the top of the hopper, straight into the top of the burrs, get ground up, and straight out into the dosing cup, which is a cool feature. And it eliminates, a lot of retention, and it also helps increase the grind time. I'm happy to report that the retention that I've seen with this grinder has been really minimal, even not doing any RDT, not having a knocker of any kind, not having bellows. I'm only seeing seeing at most like 0.3 grams of retention, and usually it's less than that, 0.1, 0.2 consistently. Now, I will say that even though you don't have to RDT because the Opus has an ionizer feature, just like its big brother, the Ode, which is awesome, I still have been RDTing because the inside of the hopper gets pretty messy, especially with lighter roasted and coffees that have a little more chaff. You will see coffee particles and chaff and speckles and all kinds of stuff get stuck up in here. In fact, there's still some in there now. And so that is a little bit of a bummer, but it's just sort of the inherent nature of a coffee grinder, right? It's creating little tiny fine particles of ground up coffee. Some of them have to go somewhere. And so unfortunately they sort of popcorn up out and into the hopper. And I found that RDTing does help reduce that a lot. Now, I do have a few issues with the hopper itself. It has some play in it. And I know that, part of that being the way you remove the hopper to get in here to make burr adjustments, there's probably inherently going to be some play in that mechanism or how that snaps together. You can move the hopper and the adjustment indicators are on the hopper, then it sort of changes where those adjustment indicators might line up with the actual adjustment dial. So that's something I wish was a little bit better. The tolerances were a little bit tighter and the hopper didn't move as much. I do like the lid that comes on the hopper. It doubles as a, dosing and weighing dish. You can put this right on your scale and then you can, dump your beans right in here. It just like floats down like it's on a cushion of air. I'm an idiot. The catch cup here is another thing that's sort of an innovative design. Again, well, it's plastic and I wish it was metal. I think it's a cool design. It's got a removable lid just like you'd find on the Ode, but it also has a espresso dosing cup insert. I should probably have the espresso dosing attachment if I'm going to talk about it. Let me get that. So here is the espresso dosing attachment. It's got provisions on here for fitting a standard 54 and 58 millimeter portafilter. This attachment's really cool. It goes inside the dosing cup and it fits very nicely, nice and tight. What I was explaining earlier was the original one that came with the Opus. It's got a loose fit here and it doesn't stay tight in there, like this guy does. It'll come out very easily. And the other thing with the original one is you can hear that magnet, and on this one, it's a much tighter fit on the magnet. I think it's a really cool, innovative design. Again, wish it was metal, but that's just me. And I understand that, in order to give us a really great burr set and a great motor, other areas you may have to cut some corners. And I don't want to say cut some corners. You may have to save some money, still create something that's very nice and very usable. And I don't know about you guys, but I would much rather have a much better burr set and a much better motor than you're going to find in something else in the same price point or even more expensive and live with a plastic catch cup versus a metal one. So I'm probably being a little too picky there. That's always good. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what grinder or how many times you do, a magnetic dosing cup. It's always good. Moving on. From an aesthetic standpoint, the Opus is undeniably a Fellow product. I think it's cool. I think it looks very neat. It's like kind of sort of monolithic, which is cool. One thing I did notice, again, going back to the materials, chosen for the exterior of the Opus, is that the base here where you slide the catch cup in and out, it does seem like it wears fairly quickly. Mine has a ton of scratches already all over it down here. It is a little disappointing that you get some scratches, pretty much right away with the Opus as soon as you start using it here on the base. But again, price point. As far as color options go, I've only seen the Opus so far in black, but seeing how it's Fellow, I imagine a white one will probably be available sometime in the near future. Maybe some other colors. I honestly don't know, so don't quote me on that. I don't even know if we're gonna see a white one. May only ever come in black. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. I'm just making an assumption based on it being Fellow that there will most likely, hopefully, be a white one. That way you guys out there have the option of white or black. So to wrap up my thoughts here on the Opus. Well, at first I wasn't super ecstatic about it and I was a little underwhelmed. Again, I felt like I was being too hard on it. After having it for a few weeks, after playing with it, after getting some great results on espresso and filter, after learning how to, make adjustments to the toolless inner burr adjustment and getting some more precise dialed in grinding, I do like the Opus, and I think for the price point, it's gonna make a lot of people happy. So I think if you're on a budget and or you are new to specialty coffee, the Opus is an absolutely perfect grinder that sort of fits perfectly in that performance versus cost category. What do you think of the Opus? Do you think it's gonna live up to the hype? Do you think they're gonna sell really well? I'm sure they're probably gonna sell well, but do you think it's gonna live up to the hype? Do you think it's gonna be a good grinder for people? Are you yourself gonna order one? Do you know somebody who's gonna get one? What are your thoughts overall on the Opus? Leave a comment, let me know what you think. I'm excited to hear your guys' thoughts on it. Thank you again to Fellow for sending me an Opus early so I could play with it, get my hands on it. It's been really exciting to be able to experience, some of these new products firsthand, before they come out, be able to make these videos and give my thoughts on them, which is really awesome. So thank you again to Fellow. Looking forward to the next thing you guys come up with. So with that being said, thanks for watching. Glad to be back, and I hope I see you guys on the next video. Take care.